That's a genius name. I mean, your last name is Duty. Duty's Daggers makes perfect sense.
Alrighty, folks. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Kevin Duty. You're watching Duty's Daggers. We have an interesting video today. You can see I have a kind of a good assortment of knives laid out here on the table. That is because we are talking about thicknesses behind the edge. If you've been in the knife world for a little while, you have no doubt heard that term, the thickness behind the edge of a knife. Um, Basic interpretation of what that means is you take a measurement right behind where the edge bevel ends and the primary bevel begins. So it would be a measurement on either side, right where the shiny edge ends and the black part begins. That is important for, well, a few reasons. Number one being the blade is going to slice better. It's going to pass through materials better if it is, the thinner it is at this point. You can't measure it down at the tip because depending on how somebody sharpens the knife, that's going to change. So that's why we measure it right behind that edge bevel. Um, there are knives that are pretty thick behind the edge, like the Benchmade Griptilian here. If you take a measurement, and we'll do that in a minute. If you take a measurement behind the edge right there, it's going to be much thicker than something like the Baby Banter, which is quite thin. So there are a few different reasons why you would want something very thin behind the edge. There are a few reasons why you would want something thicker behind the edge too, or something kind of mid-range as far as thickness behind the edge. So if you're like me, and you hear knife reviewers talk about thicknesses behind the edge and they're throwing numbers out there. At least for me, before I got a pair of calipers and started measuring my own knives, I had really no idea what the hell they were talking about. I mean, I don't know about you. I can't picture in my head what 15 thousandths is. I couldn't do it. Maybe you guys can, but I couldn't. So I had to get a pair of calipers and measure all my knives, or most of them, and get a frame of reference for what reviewers are talking about when they tell you that a knife is, whatever, 18 thousandths. So I want to do that here now for you guys. I want to give you a frame of reference so that when a knife reviewer says, hey, this knife that I'm reviewing, the thickness behind the edge is around 17 thousandths. Then you can say, okay, that's right around Rat 2 thickness, because Kevin from Duty's Daggers told me that the Rat 2 here is 18 thousandths behind the edge, so I have something to compare it to because I own a Rat 2. That's my hope. That is my hope, is to provide context for you guys next time you hear somebody tell you the thickness behind the edge of a knife. Or you can just get a pair of calipers yourself. There's always that too. But if you don't want to, then watch this video. So I want to first kind of measure the knives on the table. I think this is a pretty good assortment of knives you might have. Let me see. Is there any other better ones that I should add? Maybe I should add the PM2. Yeah, I'll add the PM2 in this. Well, no, I'll keep the mini sheepdog there. And then we'll measure the PM2 as well. I'll put it right there. But it's very similar to the Griptilian, actually. So let's measure these babies. So the thinnest behind the edge is going to be something like a Victorinox. These are very thin behind the edge, very slicey. So let's measure one of these. Let's see what we're looking at here. Typically, you take 3 measurements at the base, the middle of the blade, and then at the tip, and then kind of average it out. Usually, if I give one measurement, it's usually taken from the middle. So we have 13 thousandths back there. We have 13 and a half thousandths up there. And then at the tip, 15 thousandths. So that's very thin. 14 thousandths is quite thin. Now, before we measure some more knives, How about some things that might even help you bring this into context even more? A dollar bill. What's going on? Okay, there we go. 3/1000ths. Very thin. A business card. Pretty thick. 15/1000ths. So that's right around the thickness of the Victorinox here. Credit card, debit card, any kind of card really. 29/1000ths. Very thick. So let's measure one of the thickest knives in my collection, the Benchmade Griptilian. We have, it's kind of hard to do, 27/1000ths back here. Well, actually, hold on. It was a little bit crooked. No, it is like 28/1000ths. Wow. Middle. $27 at the tip. Come on. Wow, it's right around 30 at the tip. That's very thick. That's super duper thick. How about another thick behind the edge knife, the Hinderer. Known for being pretty thick behind the edge, not super slicey knives. $25,000s. 24/1000ths. And 32/1000ths. So actually a little thinner than the Griptilian, surprisingly. Let me let the dog out here, as usual. So those are things that are on the quite thick side. Actually, let's do the PM2 as well. I believe it's a little thinner than the Griptilian. 26, 25, 25. So yeah, little thinner than the Griptilian. So 25/1000ths, you could say, we'll just say 26/1000ths is pretty thick. That's Griptilian. Let me check one more time. 27. We'll say 27/1000ths is thick. And we're not going to really count the Victorinox. It's not really an EDC knife, but this one is also really thin. So let's get both sides of the spectrum. 27 is quite thick, and then very thin would be something like this, which would be, that's 19, 18. I think the Baby Banter is thinner. Yeah, that's around 16. Sorry, this takes kind of a second for me to get it. Yeah, it's around 17. 16 to 17. So, 27, quite thick. 16, 17, quite thin. Now, some of the reasons you might want something kind of mid-range, like the Rat here, I think it's right around 20, 22. Some of the reasons you might want something kind of in the mid-range is something, maybe you're hard using the knife, batoning wood, just you're going to hard use it. You might want something around the 20 range, 20, 21, 22. 27 is a little bit excessive even, I think, for this Griptilian. It does not need to be that thick, in my opinion. This is a fairly hard use knife, but I don't know. I don't think it needs to be that hard to use a knife. Um, the Hinderer, I think, makes a little more sense. It's really big, beefy, kind of overbuilt knife. I think that makes sense for it to be, 25, 26 thousandths behind the edge. I'm okay with that one. But, if you want to be super duper slicey, you want to be in the 15 to 18 range, probably. And then we have hollow grinds, which basically, as you sharpen the knife, it's not going to widen out as quickly. With a flat grind, if you're looking at it from above, it's basically like this. So as you sharpen the material away, it's going to get thicker and thicker as you travel up. So the thickness behind the edge will change as you sharpen it. The hollow grind is more kind of like this. So as you sharpen it, it very, very gradually gets thicker as you sharpen the material away. So let's check out the cormorant here. This is a nice hollow grind on this blade. We are looking at, I gotta steady myself here. Come on. 20 thousandths. So that's good. That's I think 20 thousandths is pretty thin. It's fairly thin. It's not like super duper thin. It's a good kind of, I wouldn't even say mid-range. I would say on the thinner side of mid-range. 20 thousandths is I think it's a great, behind the edge thickness for an EDC knife. I really do. So hopefully that kind of puts things into a little bit of perspective for you guys when people talk about thicknesses behind the edge. I have more measurements here that I took. I'll just read them off to you of other knives so that you can, maybe you have one of these and you want to know. The Hogue Deca, if you have the compound grind one, the base of the compound grind is 22 thousandths, and towards the tip it is 19 thousandths. The Mini Beglighter is 18 thousandths. The Elementum, Civivi Elementum, is 20 thousandths. The Spyderco PM2 is 24 to 25 thousandths. The Benchmade Griptilian, like I said, 25 to 27. And the Baby Bencher, like I said, 16 to 17. Super thin. Really, really thin. So, hopefully that was informative for you guys. Let me know what your thinnest behind the edge knife is that you own. For me, I think it's the Baby Banter. I'm trying to think. Do I have anything else thinner? This is pretty thin. Let's measure the Kaiser Lieb here. It feels pretty thin. Is it? Really? Wow. 15 thousandths? 15 thousandths? $15. Wow, it is 15 consistently throughout the edge. That's pretty impressive. Wow. That's another thing is, it doesn't necessarily have to be consistent throughout the whole edge, but when it is, you can tell that it was it's a precision made knife. Whoever ground in the bevels, not the edge bevel, but the bevels did a really good job. Unless it's some kind of wacky, compound grind or something like that. So the Baby Banter, I'm just double checking because it doesn't feel thinner than the Kaiser. But I guess it is because I'm getting 16 and this was 15. So this is now the new thinnest behind the edge knife in my collection. Wow. Kaiser Lieb. It's such a badass knife, man. Incredible detent. I'm sure you've heard me talk about it. Incredible detent. Nice micarta. Just really made well. Love the sheep's foot blade. It's a winner. Absolutely. So anyways, yeah, that's pretty much the video. If I did something wrong or measured something wrong, let me know in the comments. Pretty sure I'm doing this right. In fact, I am almost 100% sure I'm doing it right. But, you never know. I could be missing something. So, yeah, hope that was helpful, folks. And thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Adios.